here's some really interesting video footage from MSNBC. Now, it appears that on MSNBC, they were talking about the BLM protests that have been going on, because there's been a lot of them going on in Portland and Kenosha and DC, especially recently. There's been a lot of these protests going on. So they have an associate professor of political science at a university in Michigan on, and they ask her about how it's going to impact the election. And she explains that young people are not excited to vote because Bernie Sanders is not on the ballot. Check this out.
What impact do you foresee their movement having on the election?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time at protests, especially with the youth. I've been there from a personal reason, but also from an academic reason as well. I ask people there, what are you going to do in November? Why are you here? What are you going to do in November? And they say, I'm not going to show up because Bernie is not on the ticket. And I think that this highlights a bigger point, which is that even though we had this Democratic National Convention that was meant to unify a party, the DNC did not bring in the youth, and I think they need to do a better job of giving folks who have legitimate concerns about the direction of this country and their own interactions with institutions, including law enforcement, right, to be viewed, to be seen, to be heard, and to be included in the platform.
We're going to leave it there. Nazita Lajarbati, thank you.
The sheer shock and surprise to me is really funny, because it tells me that these people are pretty clueless and don't seem to have any idea of what's going on. Honestly, I think a lot of people don't understand just how left-wing young Democratic voters are. Like in a lot of these polls, they're actually pretty high numbers of people who are favorable to the word socialism and disfavorable to the word capitalism. It's definitely shifting when it comes to the younger generation. A lot of the sort of Red Scare stuff and things like that happened don't really exist anymore, in terms of the Fidel Castro stuff and things like that. It's not the same way that it's viewed. And so socialism is taking a more, beneficial or a better light look for them in the Democratic Party amongst young people. But not having Bernie Sanders on the ballot basically means that it's going to be all the same. And also, the idea that young people didn't come out to vote, there's not really any merit to that comment either, because when you look at the breakdown of voting, it actually breaks down as a percentage of all voters. So and it's about the same as what it was in 2016. And considering that there seemed to be a heavy coming out increase of voting in older people, it seems understandable. So there's no actual evidence that young people voted in lower numbers than last time around. That's just not really true, or that they didn't come out to vote. That's just kind of one of those divide and conquer tactics that corporate media and the corporate Democratic Party attempted to do, and honestly ended up kind of being successful, because it seems like a lot of people just kind of repeated it without actually looking into any of the matter or any of the issue. But the DNC did the opposite of trying to reach out to them, and this is something that people like John Oliver criticized the DNC for. He actually made fun of them, saying that they look like the RNC, and I believe in 2008 or something like that. Their strategy, the Democratic Party strategy right now, is to go as centrist / slightly right-wing as possible, and that means bringing on John Kasich. That means not talking about Medicare for all, not even talking about any of the issues, period, to be honest. They didn't really talk any policy positions, period. Their strategy is to appeal to Republicans, appeal to centrists, and so they're not even trying to pull the Bernie Sanders voter. They probably think, whatever, these guys probably aren't even going to vote, or, they're not worth going after. We don't care about them at all. Biden has said that he has no empathy for millennials. So it's just really interesting to see. The DNC is not trying to get out the young vote at all. And the young people are skewing pretty leftward in the near coming future. So as the older people start dying off of natural causes, there's going to be a shift in the Democratic voter base for sure. At that point, it just becomes a question of whether or not those young people are going to become more conservative as they grow older, which is yet to be seen. But It'll be interesting to see how this is going to impact the election, especially the BLM protests. But the sheer surprise of, wow, like what's surprising about that? They're not even trying to get their vote.